Chapter 1. Rose stood in the center of the Fae King's vast throne room, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Dirt caked her boots, blood stained her sleeves, and somewhere along the treacherous journey through the Faelands, she'd lost her pack, leaving her with nothing but the small dagger strapped to her thigh. A full month of pain and suffering just to reach this place. The throne room was an obscene display of wealth and magic. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and flowers draped from columns of ivory and gold. And lounging on the Fae King's lap, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, was Luna, her sister. The same sister who had screamed and reached for Rose when the Fae King dragged her away from their village. The same sister whose terrified face had haunted Rose's dreams, driving her forward when starvation and exhaustion threatened to claim her. Luna? Rose's voice cracked, her throat dry from days of rationing water. Luna, dressed in a gown of shimmering midnight blue, that probably cost more than their entire village, looked up lazily. Rose? Luna tilted her head, her hand still casually resting on the Fae King's chest. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? Rose cried back. I've spent a month tracking you down. I crossed the Death Mountains, swam through the Shadow Marshes, and almost lost my hand to a manticore in order to find you. Luna sighed dramatically, exchanging a glance with the Fae King, a devastatingly beautiful creature with silver eyes and features so perfect they seemed carved from marble. Oh, that was all unnecessary, Luna said with a dismissive wave of her hand. As you can clearly see, I don't need your help. But he took you. Rose tugged at her matted blonde hair. You were screaming, begging for help. Luna laughed. Well, I was a little confused. She gazed adoringly at Orion, running her fingers up his muscular arm. I didn't understand what was happening, but then Orion explained everything. Explained what? Rose seethed with fury. We're fated mates. Can you believe it? Of all the humans in the world, I'm the one destined for the Fae King, she preened, clearly delighted. The moment he saw me in the village, he knew. That's why he had to take me. Rose's mouth fell open. She stared at her sister, searching for signs of enchantment, but all she saw was Luna. The same self-centered Luna who had always believed that she was too good for peasant life. This is insane, Rose finally managed. Luna, whatever he told you. It's the truth. Orion spoke for the first time, his voice melodious and deep. Your sister is exactly where she belongs. With me, as my queen. Luna beamed at his words, nestling closer to him. Isn't it wonderful? I'll live forever here. No more chores, no more boring village life. Her eyes drifted over Rose's filthy appearance. You could clean up while you're here. Maybe find some new clothes before you head back home. Head back? Rose spluttered. I'm not leaving without you. Luna rolled her eyes. Don't be ridiculous. I'm staying here with my one true love. She turned to the king with a pout. Tell her, honeycakes. Tell her how perfect we are together. Orion smiled, his palm slipping to Luna's butt. The bond between fated mates cannot be broken, little human. Your sister is now part of the Fae realm. Something inside Rose snapped. After everything she'd endured, after the hell she'd crawled through to reach this place, to find her sister not only unharmed, but actually wanting to stay with her kidnapper, it was too much. No, Rose growled, drawing her dagger. I don't know what you've done to her, what spell you've cast, but it ends now." Rose lunged forward, intending to grab her sister's arm and drag her from this enchanted nightmare. But a wall of solid muscle blocked her path. Rose collided with what felt like a mountain, stumbling back a step before looking up, and up, and up. A Fae warrior towered over her, at least 7 feet of rippling muscle and barely contained power. Unlike the elegant beauty of the king, this creature was all raw strength. His midnight black hair fell down past broad shoulders, framing a face of harsh angles and a single scar that traced from temple to jaw. "The king's mate is not to be touched," the warrior rumbled, his voice so deep that Rose felt it in her core. "Get out of my way," she hissed, though it seemed absurd when he could so easily squash her. The warrior's eyes narrowed as they locked with hers. Something flashed between them. Literally flashed. A burst of golden light so intense that Rose had to close her eyes against it. When she opened them again, the throne room had fallen silent. Luna squealed with delight. Oh, by the ancient trees. Did you see that, my love? Did you see?" The king was smirking, looking between Rose and the warrior with amusement. "Indeed I did, my sweet. It seems that fate has a sense of humor." The warrior was staring at Rose with shock, that quickly transformed into something else. A look of raw hunger that sent a shiver down her spine. "What just happened?" Rose backed away. Luna clapped her hands excitedly. "You're fated mates, you and Maximus. This is perfect. Now you can stay here too, and we can all be together forever." "What? No!" Rose looked frantically between her sister's delighted face and the warrior, Maximus, who continued to stare at her with unnerving intensity. "I'm not. This isn't." "The magical light does not lie," Maximus said. "You are mine, as I am yours." He stepped toward her, one massive hand extended like beckoning a dog. Rose flinched away, her back hitting a column. "Come," he said calmly, like being fated mates was an everyday occurrence in the Fae world. "I will show you to our chambers." "Our chambers?" Hysteria crept into Rose's voice. "There is no anything." Luna let out an exasperated sigh. "Why do you always have to be so difficult, Rose? Maximus is Orion's most trusted warrior, his closest friend. We'll be like marrying 2 brothers." "I'm not staying here," Rose hissed. "And neither are you. This is some kind of trick. Some enchantment." Before Rose could say another word, Maximus closed the distance between them. She swung her fist at his chest, but it was like punching a brick wall. Her knuckles throbbed with pain, and the warrior didn't even flinch. "Let me go," Rose snarled, struggling as he swept her up into his arms. "The journey has taken its toll on you, little mate," Maximus rumbled. "You need me to take care of you." "I need you to put me down," Rose spat. Luna giggled. "Oh, Rose, stop fighting it. Just accept the gift fate has given you." Rose glared at her sister, suddenly deciding that Luna could rot in this shiny palace for the rest of eternity. Maximus carried Rose from the throne room, her weak struggles doing nothing to slow his large strides. "Here we are." Maximus stopped before a massive wooden door carved with intricate designs of wolves and warriors. The chamber was large but barely decorated. A bed dominated one wall, big enough to accommodate Maximus's enormous frame, and a large painting of the Fae King and Maximus decorated one wall. Rose barely had time to take in the sparse furnishings before Maximus strode across the room to another door. The sound of rushing water echoed from within. "What are you doing?" she demanded as he carried her toward the sound. "You reek of the Shadow Marshes and manticore," he said. "My mate cannot remain in such a state." Before Rose could protest, she found herself in a bathing chamber. Steam rose from a pool-sized tub carved from black marble, already filled with water and soap bubbles. "No, wait," Rose began, but Maximus tossed her into the water, clothes and all. She came up spluttering, warm bubbles clinging to her hair and face. The water was perfectly heated, and despite her fury, she couldn't deny how good it felt against her aching muscles. Maximus settled onto a marble bench beside the tub, his massive frame elegant despite his size. "I have waited centuries for you," he said, his voice taking on a dreamy quality. "Watched Orion find his mate, and felt such envy burning in my chest. I thought perhaps fate had forgotten me, that I was destined to remain alone while my king found happiness." Rose tried to pull herself to the edge of the tub, but her exhausted arms betrayed her, and she slipped back into the water with a splash. "We're going to be so happy together, little mate," Maximus continued, oblivious to her struggles. "This chamber has felt empty for so long, but now you'll fill it with warmth and laughter, and someday it will echo with the footsteps of our children." "Children?" Rose choked on the word, horror flooding through her. "I'm not having your fucking children." Maximus rose from the bench. "I should fetch you proper clothing, something befitting the mate of the king's most trusted warrior." The moment he disappeared out the door, Rose hauled herself from the tub. Her soaked clothes clung to her, heavy and uncomfortable. A large wooden chest sat at the foot of the massive bed. Rose sorted through it, finding tunics and leather armor that would swallow her whole. She grabbed the smallest tunic she could find, still enormous on her frame, and pulled it over her head. Spotting a leather belt coiled on top of the chest, she wrapped it around her waist multiple times, cinching the oversized garment until it resembled something wearable. On the room's single dresser, she found a long silver comb. The pointed end was sharp enough to do damage if necessary. The corridor was empty. Rose slipped out barefoot, the stone floor cold against her feet as she began to run, one hand holding the comb ready, and the other keeping the oversized tunic from slipping off her shoulder. She hadn't made it far when a familiar voice called out behind her. "Rose, there you are!" Rose spun around to find Luna, wearing yet another gaudy gown, even more extravagant than the last. The dress appeared to be woven from actual flowers, the petals shimmering with each step. Tiny bells sewn onto the fabric chimed softly as Luna moved. "Isn't it magnificent?" Luna twirled, the floral dress rustling around her. "The palace seamstress created it just for me. Everything here is so beautiful, Rose. The food never spoils, the flowers never wilt, and look." She held up her hand, and Rose gasped as she saw a giant glittering diamond. "In a few months, I'll be queen." "Luna, this isn't right," Rose said, but her sister grabbed her arm. "Come on, you have to see the banquet hall. They're preparing a feast to celebrate my engagement." Luna's grip was surprisingly strong as she dragged Rose down the corridor. "Everyone will be there. All the noble Fae families, the court musicians, the dancers. It's going to be incredible." They emerged into a room so vast that it could have contained their entire village. Tables stretched as far as the eye could see, laden with foods that sparkled and gleamed. Fae nobles in elaborate costumes mingled throughout the room. Luna immediately pulled Rose toward the head table, where the king sat on his throne. Without hesitation, Luna settled onto his lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "My love," she purred, Look who I found wandering the halls in the most adorable outfit. The king's silver eyes took in Rose's makeshift dress with amusement. How resourceful. Luna giggled and turned to face the king, her hand sliding up to cup his perfect face. Isn't it wonderful? Our first celebration together as a family. Rose watched in horror as Luna leaned in and pressed her lips to Orion's, in a kiss that was far too intimate for public display. The Fae King's hands moved to Luna's waist, pulling her closer, and Luna made a soft moan that made Rose's stomach turn. That's disgusting, Rose muttered, looking away. Luna, people are watching. Luna broke the kiss with a breathless laugh. Let them watch. I'll be queen soon. I can do whatever I want. She nuzzled Orion's neck. Besides, everyone here thinks it's romantic. Don't you, my love? Indeed, the king murmured, his voice thick with desire. Though perhaps we should save some passion for later, my sweet queen. But Luna seemed to have no intention of saving anything for later. She kissed him again, deeper this time, her fingers tangling in his silver hair as she rocked her hips with a moan. Rose's face burned with embarrassment as every Fae noble turned to watch the display. Some smiled, others whispered behind glittery fans, but none seemed shocked by the increasingly intimate scene playing out on the throne. This is mortifying, Rose hissed under her breath. Our parents are turning in their graves. Give it another minute, a familiar deep voice rumbled beside her ear. And they'll be making the next heir right there on that throne. Rose spun to find Maximus standing directly behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his massive frame. He was watching Luna and the king, like someone observing the weather. That's disgusting, Rose snapped. Maximus raised an eyebrow. It's nature, little mate. The bond between fated mates is intense. Luna started making soft sounds that made Rose want to disappear into the floor. The king's mouth moved to her neck, and Luna threw her head back in obvious pleasure, her flower crown slipping sideways as she ground against him. I can't watch this, Rose muttered, getting to her feet. Maximus's large hand settled on her back, guiding her away from the head table. Come. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he steered her toward a side corridor. I have wine in my chambers that will help. Fine, Rose said quietly, allowing him to lead her away from the banquet hall and its increasingly inappropriate entertainment. But just a drink, then I'm finding a way out of this place. Maximus said nothing, but Rose caught the small smile that played at the corners of his mouth. Once inside his chambers, Maximus moved to a cabinet and withdrew a bottle of deep red wine and 2 goblets. Rose collapsed into a chair by the fireplace. I can't believe her, Rose burst out. Do you know what I went through to get here? I walked for weeks through terrain that would kill most people. I fought off shadow creatures, nearly drowned in those cursed marshes, and spent my last coins beating a manticore at poker, which, by the way, cheats worse than a tavern drunk. Maximus poured the wine, listening silently as he handed her a goblet. I barely slept, barely ate, pushed myself past every limit. Rose continued, taking a large gulp of the wine. And for what? To find my sister living like a pampered princess? Completely content to forget everything and everyone she left behind? You're an amazing woman, Maximus said, settling into the chair across from her. Most humans wouldn't have survived half that journey. Rose looked up at him, surprised by the genuine admiration in his voice. Luna was always spoiled. Even as children, she expected everything to be handed to her. Pretty dresses, The best food, attention from every boy in the village. She took another sip of wine, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. I should have known she'd see this as some grand adventure instead of the nightmare it actually is. Your sister is weak, Maximus said simply. You are not. Something in his tone made Rose really look at him for the first time. The firelight cast shadows across his angular features, softening the harsh scar that ran down his cheek. His dark hair caught glints of gold in the flickering light, and those amber eyes. They weren't just looking at her with hunger anymore. There was something deeper there, something that made her pulse quicken. Rose felt heat rise in her cheeks. When had his voice become so appealing? And why was she suddenly noticing how his tunic stretched across his broad chest? She took another sip of wine, trying to steady herself, but found her eyes drawn back to him again and again. Stop looking at me like that, she said quietly. Like what? Maximus asked, making her stomach flutter. Like where? Rose trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Like we're actually meant to be together, she thought but couldn't say out loud. The firelight played across his features as he leaned back in his chair, and Rose found herself studying the strong line of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. He was so different from the boys in her village. Bigger, stronger, more, everything. There was something magnetic about his presence that she was finding harder and harder to resist. You're staring, he said with a hint of amusement. Rose jerked her gaze away. I'm not staring, I'm just tired. What was wrong with her? She was supposed to be planning her escape, not admiring her captor's broad shoulders. Maximus set down his goblet and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The movement brought him closer, and Rose caught a hint of his scent, something woodsy and wild that made her head spin. You're fighting it, he said softly, his amber eyes never leaving her face. The bond. I can feel your resistance like a wall between us. Rose's grip tightened on her goblet. Maybe because I don't want to be bonded to anyone. Maybe because I came here to rescue my sister, not to. She gestured vaguely between them. To find your mate? Maximus's voice dropped lower, more intimate. Rose, look at me. Against her better judgment, she did. Those golden eyes seemed to see straight through her, past all her defenses. Tell me you don't feel it, he said. Tell me your heart doesn't race when I'm near. Tell me you don't wonder what it would be like to stop fighting and just let go. Rose's cheeks burned. She couldn't tell him that because it would be a lie. It's just magic, she whispered. Some spell making me think. It's not magic. Maximus rose from his chair in one fluid motion and moved to kneel beside her. It's fate, little mate. It's the part of you that recognizes the part of me that was always meant to be yours. His hand reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed against her cheek, tucking a damp strand of hair behind her ear. The simple touch sent electricity racing through her. We should consummate the bond, he murmured, his thumb tracing along her jawline. Complete what fate has started between us. Rose's breath caught. We can't just. We can. We should. The pull between us will only grow stronger until we do. Rose set down her goblet with shaking hands. Every rational part of her mind was screaming warnings, but her body was betraying her completely. The way he was looking at her, like she was something precious and desired. One hand. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Maximus blinked. Rose's face flamed red, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. You get one hand. That's it. A slow, devastating smile spread across his features. One hand, he agreed, his voice rough with desire. For now. Before Rose could pull away, his enormous hand engulfed hers completely. His skin was surprisingly warm, surprisingly gentle, and the moment their palms touched, she felt that strange golden light pulse between them again. Maximus groaned, a sound so deep and primal that Rose felt it vibrate through her entire body. Rose tried to tug her hand free, but his grip tightened, just enough to keep her there. It's just skin contact, she said breathlessly. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? Then why is your pulse racing? Why are your cheeks flushed? Because you're right, she thought. Because somehow, this simple touch feels more intimate than anything I've ever experienced. But she wasn't about to admit that to him. Maximus brought her hand closer, turning it palm up to study it in the firelight. His thumb traced the lines etched there, following each crease with deliberate slowness. Such small hands, he murmured, his voice thick with wonder. Yet they've wielded weapons, fought monsters, carried you across impossible distances. He pressed her palm flat against his chest, right over his heart. Can you feel that? Rose's breath hitched. His heart was pounding beneath her touch, the rhythm wild and erratic. Say it, he said, his eyes never leaving hers. Say what? My name. I've waited centuries to hear my mate speak my name. Rose felt her resistance crumbling. The wine, the firelight, the way he looked at her like she was something precious and rare. It was all conspiring against her better judgment. Maximus, she whispered. He closed his eyes as if savoring the sound, and Rose felt his heartbeat spike even faster beneath her palm. When he opened them again, the hunger there was so intense it made her dizzy. It was the most beautiful thing that she'd ever seen. Rose's resolve snapped. With a growl, she launched herself from her chair and into his lap, crushing her mouth to his in a kiss that tasted of wine and desire. Maximus wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. His mouth claimed hers with a need that went beyond human understanding. Every stroke of his tongue, every scrape of his teeth, sent fire coursing through her veins. Rose tangled her fingers in his hair, desperate for more. It was like a dam inside her had burst, unleashing a torrent of pent-up longing and need. Maximus pulled back, just enough to press his forehead against hers. His breath was ragged, his massive chest heaving beneath her. Mate, he growled, his voice deep and dangerous. I've waited a lifetime for you. Then don't stop, Rose whispered, her own voice raw and needy. Don't you dare stop. Maximus scooped her up in his arms, carrying her across the chamber toward the massive bed. With each step, his lips found hers, again and again. Maximus gathered Rose close, her head cradled against his chest, and she closed her eyes as his arms enveloped her. "Stay with me," he whispered, his voice ragged with emotion. "Stay with me, little mate." "Just until morning," Rose said drowsily, already drifting off in his embrace. His chest, large and solid beneath her cheek, was warmer than anyone else she'd ever slept against. He pressed a lingering kiss to the crown of her head, shifting them both until they laid comfortably on the massive bed. And as the exhaustion finally claimed her, Rose fell into the deepest, most peaceful sleep she'd ever had. Thank you for listening to Ravished by the Fae Warrior by Beatrix Steam. Find the original short story with the spicy scene included on Amazon and Audible. Find more spicy stories by Beatrix Steam and free ebooks at beatrixsteam.com.